In Unit 8, we noted that results sections tend to have a few common elements, but those elements are presented a little differently for each study. We also said that tables can be helpful. Reporting the results of a correlation analysis helps us think about those ideas in a slightly different context. The results for an association study will include the descriptive statistics for each variable, like we did in the frequency report, but that will only be part of the information. In this case, the descriptives are provided in context by giving information about the sample that helps the reader understand what we're reporting for the correlation analysis. We'll still include the same common components we discussed for the last project: a statement of the hypothesis, statistical notation, and the words to explain it, as well as an explanation of scoring for each scale. Reporting the results of the correlation analysis is a little different than the descriptives because we don't usually say the correlation coefficient was. Instead, we use words to explain the direction, strength, and significance, then put the actual numbers in parentheses with abbreviations, like I have on the right in this slide. Note that we include 3 numbers. The first is the degrees of freedom for the analysis. It goes in parentheses after an italicized R and is computed by subtracting 2 from the number of participants in the analysis. The second number is the correlation coefficient from the Pearson correlation row and the SPSS output. And the third number is the significance level from the SIG2 tabled row and the output. Typically, we round those numbers to 2 decimal points. Please pause the video to review this example. When we talked about reporting results for the frequency project, I mentioned that tables can be helpful. It's especially the case when we're reporting the findings for multiple variables. In the case of an association study, you might report the strongest and weakest relationships in the text, and then include all variables in a table. The example table in the manuscript template is for a correlation report. Note that it's formatted with the variables in both a column and a row to help the reader locate the information about each variable more easily. But unlike SPSS, we only have one row for each variable, and we don't report the correlation coefficients twice. Reporting the results of a correlation does include a few more pieces of information than the descriptive analysis, but the common components and APA-style structure help us make sure we include everything. Remember, we bring all that information together in the discussion section to explain what we learned. In other words, to present the knowledge gained from the work. We do that by explaining the results in words and relating the words to the hypothesis. Then we provide a context for the findings by discussing how they relate to other work, as well as the strengths and weaknesses. Then we suggest next steps, bringing us back to the first steps of the research process.